right, well, good morning again. So, I didn't realize it was Mardi Gras Sunday, but I brought my clarinet. I really did. And I was thinking about courage early one day of this week, and kind of remembering how back in the day I used to play the clarinet. And raise your hand if you ever played a recorder. Did anyone ever play a recorder? So it's not a recorder, but it's like the recorder, except it's got the shiny buttons on it. And each one of those is like a note, right? The combinations that you play are these notes. Unlike the trombones, which wasn't that cool with the trombones. Trombones can kind of slide around a little bit. But when I was in college, we played Rhapsody in Blue. I don't know if you know that from the United Airlines. Do you ever fly for United Airlines? Yeah? Okay. So and I was thinking about what courage felt like, and for me in college, the whole orchestra would sit there, and we were about to play Rhapsody in Blue, and there's no conductor, there's no other people playing, it's just the clarinet starting that off with this small trembling note that starts at the bottom and then does this big glissando all the way to the top. By the way, this isn't a performance, this is an object lesson. Just there's a difference. So what's 90% likelihood that I'm going to really mess this up? I graduated college in 2004, so it was a while ago since I've played this. But I thought of us too, like courage starts out with this tremble in us. It can be a tremble of some kind of emotion, a tremble of fear, a tremble of righteous indignation, a tremble of just something stirring in us that just starts to stir and tremble in us. I have to remember which way that goes on. And then it launches into this thing of uncharted territory. The thing about the glissando is that you're not actually playing. I don't know if you would know this. Did anyone play clarinet? So a couple of you. Okay. So it's not like any specific notes, which is why I'm going to mess it up for you today, because it's actually like a slide, like the trombone. So that note starts out. Let's see if I can even make a sound. That like trembling note, and then it's got, oh, thank you. Thank you. And the thing with the clarinet is that it can do these kind of slides. And I had this teacher from the Lyric Opera who taught, and she was like, you're not really supposed to do that with the clarinet. But, I kind of made my own little rules that a lot of people do as well, so. So it doesn't have to be each note like with this little thing. So, and as you kind of like go, we all hear people who say things, and we sometimes think, my voice has already been spoken, but no one can speak your voice except for you. No one can show up for you except you. And so, even when that fluttering happens, where we feel like this conviction to say something, to do something, to resolve something, to engage with something, where that holy discontent rises up within us, where we think, like that fluttering note, I need to take this somewhere, but it's uncharted territory and I'm afraid to do it, that is our opportunity, uniquely God-given to us, that only we can do what we can do. Only we can say what we can say. You are to so many people in your lives the only person, you are the only you to all the people around you. And so I just want us to kind of think about what courage is with that sense. So I'm going to try and play this. And oh, by the way, and I also had hand surgery, and I asked my occupational therapist if I could play it, and she said no. So I feel like I have a lot of excuses if I can't pull it off. It's like, I don't know if it's going to work. Anyway, what I figured is, did I already say this? If I mess up, you'll really, really, really remember it a lot more. So let's see if I can. Okay, so it didn't really get. Let me try again. Okay, so it kind of did. I could do it better 26, 22, whatever years ago. Courage is a difficult thing. Sometimes we think of courage, especially when we look at other people and we're like, that's great that they have courage. But when we have to have courage, like today, I feel like I, more so than just in that little clarinet example there, have to have courage, is to talk about difficult, hard things that sometimes are nuanced, that sometimes people don't agree about, that sometimes you put yourself out there and you land yourself in hot water. And the problem with the prophetic voice, as Brittany and I often talk about, is you all have a prophetic voice. And you might not feel like you do, but you do. And we all do. We also, whether you're a pastor or a layperson or whatever career you're in, you really do have a pastoral voice. We are a royal priesthood of believers. You have a priestly voice. And you have, as our church always says, the ministers is everybody, and then the pastors is underneath that. So you have a ministerial voice and a prophetic voice. And how do you balance those things together? In today's story, the Jewish people were so excited to hear what Paul and Barnabas had to say. They were really thrilled with the idea that a Messiah had come, and then everything changed. And what changed is they became jealous. I don't know if you picked that up in the reading today, but at first they were excited, and they said, "Come back, we want to hear more about you." And they didn't want to let them go, and then they became jealous. And I think the most important and the hardest part of the prophetic voice and courageous leadership is self-leadership. Because not being able to work through their inner jealousy, they forfeited the opportunity to become part of what Paul and Barnabas were inviting them into. That inner turmoil, that inner jealousy, that inner work that they had to do, that we all have to do as we develop our prophetic voices, we use our voices. That inner work, they just weren't ready to do it yet. And they weren't ready to do it because they were jealous not just randomly, but they were jealous in an honest, sincere, understandable kind of way. Because the whole idea of the Jewish nation was that they were God's chosen people. God was like, you are my people, and if other people want to become Jews, they can. But you are my people, and I make this covenant with you as the Jewish nation, and it's God and the Jews, and they're in it together to proclaim God's light to the world as Jews. And then what happened? The whole city showed up when they weren't Jews. And they realized that they would have to separate their Jewishness and give up something. And this is a theme throughout the New Testament, right? Of where the Jews were given this opportunity to put aside their cultural and national identity. Not that they couldn't still hold on to it, but that they couldn't synchronize it with their faith. Before, they could. But when Christianity began, it was there's no Greek, no Jew, no slave, no free, no man, no woman, but all are together. And for the Jewish people, for some of them, that was too much for them to bear. And they weren't able to do that inner work to come along. I think, and by the way, I loved what our Boy Scouts was saying about all the landscaping. I don't know if you noticed that over the fall, all the landscaping that got done by the Boy Scouts. Did you guys notice that? And all the good work that the Boy Scouts do. And I am so appreciative of the Boy Scouts. And I deeply respect and I love you guys. I love this congregation. And yet I want to draw a parallel that we have to consider that takes courageous and humble leadership on my part to say this. But when we gather together, we are the ecclesia, we are the called out ones, we are the church. And it's hard for me, if I'm honest, to see us all stand and pledge allegiance to the flag in the sanctuary as part of what we do. Now, granted, it was before what we did, and it's because we want to support the Boy Scouts, and so that's why we did it. But it's hard because it feels like a little hint of what the Jews struggled with. It feels like a little hint of Christian nationalism. And I'm not saying that you are, I have no doubt in my mind that that's what we are. We're not. But the challenge is what the Jews struggled with, sometimes we struggle with too. That we think, well, wouldn't it be great if there was liberty and justice for all? Isn't that what Jesus wants? But Jesus actually has a dream that's different than the American dream. And so for us to choose where our allegiance truly lies, not as individuals, I love, and America has given me many wonderful things. My children are American. I've raised them here, and so I'm very thankful for this country. And I aspire to I think of the Pledge of Allegiance as an aspirational thing, aspiring to the liberty and justice that we obviously don't have right now yet. But I just think for us, we have to wrestle with what does it mean for our allegiance to be torn? What is that inner work so that we can have a prophetic voice that's undiluted by other allegiances? And that doesn't mean that we don't love our country. It doesn't mean that you as an individual don't say the Pledge of Allegiance. But as a church, we're called to something that's different, again, than the American dream. We're called to Jesus' dream. We're called to something that's different than the American values. We're called to the values of Jesus' teaching. And so I am in no way, just to be crystal clear, scolding or shaming or saying that you did anything wrong. We did that this morning to honor the Boy Scouts, but I'm also being honest in a humble and hopefully prophetic way to say there are people who see the flag, and to them, it represents kidnapping. It represents our racial past as a country, where historians remind us that people of color have been enslaved in this country longer than they have been free. It represents, of course, ideals of where we want to go, but it also represents a history in this city of redlining, of white, Hispanic, and black segregation in our city, which, thank God, is slowly eroding, but this is one of the most segregated cities in the nation. And so the flag has a place in our hearts, but what the Jews wrestled with was, what does it mean to give up their cultural identity that they loved, that they knew, to take on a new identity that was more important than their cultural identity? Not that they couldn't still be Jews, not that we can't still be Americans, not that we can't still love our country, but that our allegiance is to something which I believe we would mostly agree with, that our allegiance is to the values and dreams of God. And that is what I think courageous leadership is for us when we exercise our prophetic voice. It's not even to necessarily shy away from politics, but to say, in a nonpartisan sense, to say, this is what Jesus teaches us and what we believe in, and this is what we're going to stand up for, and this is what is going to ultimately have a trickle-down benefactory effect on our lives and our country because we follow, first and foremost, an allegiance to Jesus. And so, I just wanted to share this today to kind of encourage us and to help us to think about our allegiance, because while there is a lot of hurt that has happened and is continuing to happen in this current political climate, I have, and I've said this a lot, I have never been more proud of our church. And we have people who go to the bus stop not like our strongest, most able-bodied people who they are there too, but there's our seniors, retired folks in their 60s and 70s and 80s out at the bus stop protecting kids from ICE in Arlington Heights. And just this week we found out, I'm sorry, I'm just really emotional, but just this week we found out that one of the parents who'd been taken by ICE was returned. This is just such a hard time in our country. I'm sorry for being emotional. Just the murders that we see, the people who died in custody in ICE, the blatant racism of other political leaders. This is, as I say often, these are not normal times. These are times when our country is on a horrible headlong path into what I believe is disaster. It's so hard to see it. And that's why it's so important for us to remember that we are not Americans first, or whatever nationality you happen to be first. We are not Caucasians or African Americans. We're not gay or straight first. We are first children of God that are called to have a prophetic voice in a time that is, well, you know, in this time. And I just worry so deeply for our country because I love our country, and I think true patriotism isn't saying that our country is great, it's saying our country is broken, but we're not going to fix it through politics, we're not going to fix it through voting only, although those are very important things, please hear me on that, but we're ultimately, as the church, going to fix it by standing up with a prophetic voice of action to care for the hopeless and the homeless, to care for the disenfranchised, to go to the bus stops, to go to pads, to go to the places where we gather. Because when we do that, we're like that quavering note at the beginning of that song. We put ourselves out there, sometimes in harm's way, you know? And we put ourselves out there in difficult situations where because there's nuance and difficulty and people don't always understand where we're coming from, we put ourselves out there in a way where our intentions could be misconstrued. But we put ourselves out there as fledgling prophetic voices and as strong prophetic voices as Christians first, with Jesus' dream for our lives and for our country. Our country really needs the church right now. And the church has lost its way so much because it has thought that through, not our church, but a lot of churches have thought that through the country they can achieve the means that they want, or power, or domination, or their viewpoints. And what I want to encourage you to do is just to, you may not agree with everything that I've said, and again, I'm sorry for getting emotional, but I just humbly encourage you to think, what is your courageous leadership? What is your prophetic voice? What is our prophetic voice together? Because somehow we have to stand up and not look away from the tragedy that surrounds us. Because what the gospel does not call us to do is to shelter in place. What it calls us to do is to go out and to open up the floodgates of truth to everybody in all different places. In places particularly where people are hurting. And so that is my encouragement for you today, is to find that and continue that bold, courageous leadership that you have, and find and continue to use that prophetic voice. And don't think that it's any small thing when you stand up and when you reconcile and when you make a difference in a small way or in a big way, because that is God's Spirit through you creating a different, better, more vibrant and loving world. Let's pray. Oh God, I know I'm a big baby, and I get emotional and caught up, but we also know that you rejoice over us with singing, and you weep with us with tears. And so whether people are in the same place as me or a totally different place. It doesn't matter. We're all in our own place. But I pray that you would spark and ignite in us, like Ben's talk, that candle, that flame that won't go out, that spark that won't be extinguished, that we would live out your dream for this world, that we would move beyond politics and partisanship and move beyond nationality and identity, and we would embrace not only those things, but even more so our identity in you as prophetic ministerial voices in this time and in our circles and in this world. We pray this in your name.